All righty. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Every Calorie Counts podcast. We do have a guest today. We have Brittney from Team Tomanek. Tomanek? Is it Tomanek or Tomanek? Tomanek Trained.
Tomanek. Tomanek.
Um, yeah. But go ahead, Brittney, introduce yourself. I'm excited to get into your journey, all about you. Yeah.
Yeah, so my name is Brittney. I am a coach on Tomanek Trained. And I've been a coach on Tomanek Trained for what, like 3 years now? Almost 3 years, 4 years-ish. I don't know. I live in Avon Lake, Ohio. I've been a full-time competition prep and lifestyle coach for 2 years now.
Nice.
It's my second year. So I've had a blast and I'm ready to continue with my trajectory and my career at this point.
Awesome. So I kind of we were skipping ahead big time prior to the call, and we kind of got a little ahead, even though that's it's close to where we're going here. So why don't we start with just kind of like Brittney's origin into the sport, and kind of like even before coaching was even a thing. Like, how'd you get involved with bodybuilding? And then eventually, I kind of do want to hear the story about how the hell an LA girl made it to fucking Avon Lake, Ohio, and that culture shock in and of itself. I'm interested to hear that. But let's start with the kind of origin. So I know there's been a lot for you from a competitive standpoint too. You've changed class, you changed divisions, which is a pretty big deal. Change divisions. I think it is whenever somebody's
Yeah.
doing that. That to me is bodybuilding, when there's like that it's growth. You know what I mean? It's development, it's evolvement, it's growth. And it's like, to be able to get there, I think is a pretty big mental hurdle for, especially for a female, you know what I mean? Growing all that tissue and making sure that you're putting yourself in that position. So why don't we start with your bodybuilding, and then you can kind of transition into how that became coaching and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So I was exposed to bodybuilding pretty young. My mom was a figure competitor.
Oh,
And
sweet.
so I was exposed. Yeah, I was exposed super young. I was like helping my mom make her meals while she was at work. And like during the
Oh,
summer, if
awesome.
she needed, I would like, yeah, I would defrost her chicken. And if I didn't, I would be in trouble. Like it was like a whole thing. And it was one of those things where people at my school noticed that my mom was doing these things. And it's very, back then, like there was like no bodybuilders like that.
Yeah.
And so there was only a handful of very serious ones. And so people would ask me, like, are you gonna do that? Like your mom looks crazy. And like, are you gonna get on stage like she does? And I was like, no, have you seen what they do? Like, have you seen it? Like, you're not even, they're not in it. They just see the result of my mom like looking the way she does, but they're not at the house when she's prepping all her meals, when she's waking up at 5 downstairs in the garage doing cardio on the stair mill. They're not there when she has to leave early to go to the gym. And back then they do 2-a-days. So like they go to the gym in the morning, go to the gym at night, and like no carbs. And it was really crazy back then.
Mhm.
And so that was my exposure to it. So my initial exposure was like, I'm not doing that shit. Um, not with the way that, at least not with the way that they do it. And then
Yeah.
I started going to school, and I majored in biology. And then I started working out on my own. My mom didn't really like push me to do that. She was just like, if you want to start doing that, great. Like she was never in my ear. It was just like, I always watched her. So when I went to college, I started getting into weightlifting, and I started like feeling a really big lack of alignment with my major at the time in bio. And so it was like I was waking up every day thinking about lifting, waking up every day thinking about exercising, waking up every day thinking about taking care of myself. So I talked to a mentor at the time, and he was like, just switch to kinesiology. It's kind of like switching divisions, right? It's like really big
Mhm.
deal because your life trajectory goes in a different way. And so it was a huge deal for me to be in bio and have such a demanding major and then decide to switch. And so I took an extra year in college, and it was one of the best decisions because that led me to moving to Ohio the first time, which I moved to Ohio to go and get my master's in sport
Gotcha.
and rec pedagogy.
Okay.
And then, so that's how I was exposed to the Ohio scene. And
Gotcha.
so I got into competing during my master's program. And that's where I had heard of Mark Tomanek. But I had never met him. I'd actually been invited to meetups and stuff at competition bodies here at Morphogen Nutrition. And I never went because I didn't know them like that. And
Right.
so I had already competed once when I had found out, like, and kind of got exposed to the Cleveland area. And then, yeah, I went back to California for my first professional position. COVID hit. I, I started my coaching business. And then shortly after that, about a year later, I moved here so that I could be closer to the team and closer to headquarters, as we like to call it. And essentially, I moved so I could have space to practice bodybuilding. I moved because I love bodybuilding, and I wasn't in a space in California working 80-hour weeks, having a 2-hour commute back and forth every single day to be able to actively practice bodybuilding the way that I wanted to and be the coach that I wanted to. So I like packed all my shit and just moved out here. Like, and my position in terms of my job back there was a very secure position. I was coordinator and assistant director of fitness and wellness at several recreation centers. So like, you know, I was working at SFSU, I worked at CSUF. And so I had state level positions, and I was like, this is just not for me. It's just not for me because it doesn't align with my personal interests and goals, and it doesn't align with what my passion is. So
Yeah, it didn't let you up
yeah.
at all. Yeah. You and Marina have a very similar story in that way. How old were you at that point? So we're talking 2022. You said you moved out there. How old are we talking?
I think at the time I was 27 because I was 27 and I turned 28 that year. So this year I'll be 30.
Okay, nice. So yeah, I mean, obviously that's a big, so you had some kind of, maneuvering there between the different majors, and then you kind of got yourself a stable position, and now, it's a big move, man. It's like that's not something to take lightly, especially obviously you had some experience in Ohio, so I'm sure there was some comfortability with moving back to Ohio, but especially with that LA to Ohio move, like that's just, obviously you knew it fit you because you had some experience there. Like I said, it's just, to me, that's like a big change. You know what I mean? Like it's a big change. I've had through some work experience and through some different, my family lives down in Florida. I know growing up in New Jersey, right? I was born in Virginia, raised in Florida, but I've since, whatever, my late or early teenagers, I've lived in New Jersey, which is a lot more populous area, a lot more dense area, right? And then now I go back home to whatever, Virginia or Florida, and I'm like, God, it's a fucking like desolate here. Even though most people would find it to be a very normal setting, in my mind, because I'm so used to this urban setting that we're in as far as Jersey is concerned, it's so like, again, it's desolate. It's like you got to drive an hour to get to the nearest grocery store in Florida, and I'm exaggerating a little bit, but like to me, it was just at this point, honestly, I don't know how well I would transition, going from a place that's more of like, and again, LA even more so than Jersey, obviously, but to a place where it's like I'm back in Florida, or we've talked about Texas, all this different shit to be able to kind of get out of Jersey. But again, it's just, to me, that day-to-day thing would be such a change that there's got to be like it's a transition. It's a transition, to say the least. How did you handle all that? Was that something that you felt fit you better, and that you relished that, you wanted that, or was it a change that you had to kind of get used to?
So when I had moved the first time to Athens, Ohio, which is down south in Ohio, Cleveland is up north. So right now I'm near Cleveland. It's up north.
Oh, okay.
So
Gotcha.
in Athens, it's nothing. Like there's nothing out there. The town is the school at Ohio University. That's where I went. And so, I mean, I enjoyed it. I made a lot of friends. I had obviously my first exposure competing out there. And so the slower paced lifestyle was what I was initially equipped with when I first started competing. So when I went back to California and I had started competing, it was actually a huge shock for me to go back to California. So the initial move to Athens was, it was difficult, but I also knew I was going there for school. I knew it was temporary.
Right.
But I also started competing at that time. And so when I went back to California, I didn't move back to LA. I moved to San Francisco. I've been all over the place.
Gotcha,
I moved to
yeah.
San Francisco for my first position, which is north, in Northern California. That was hard because everything out there is public transportation. You don't really drive. And if you do drive, if you're going like 5 miles, it takes you like an hour. It's like, it's really ridiculous out there and super heavily populated. And at the time, I was getting serious and super serious about bodybuilding. I had even hired Mark while I was still out there. So I had just realized like COVID was kind of my blessing because we started working from home. So I packed all my stuff, went back to Southern California to stay with my mom for a little bit and worked from home for like a year. And then I got my second position down south in California near LA. And then that's when I was like, okay, I'm ready to go full-time coaching. So I really didn't stay there for very long until I was just like, you know what, fuck it, let's do it. And so packed all my shit again and went back to Ohio. And now I feel aligned. Now I feel like this is for me. That's why I bought a house out here. That's why I'm able to settle. I'm able to actually do things that I want to do because the cost of living is so much cheaper and I have more space. Like I said, space is really important when you're talking about being an elite competitor or being an elite coach. You need to have the space to do it. And when you have a 2-hour commute every single day and you are working a job that you don't hate, but it's just not for you, you have less space to be able to put that effort into the things that you're passionate about. And so if something that you're passionate about, like myself in coaching, is a way to seek livelihood and is a way to have a career, why not create space for that? Because I enjoy that a lot more. And it gives me the ability to align with my personal goals of competing on my own as well. So
yeah. Yeah, you made a good post about that the other day about making room. Brittney's one, if you don't follow her, you do really well with your captions. I like the like what you're writing under those posts. Seriously, sometimes it's really good. But yeah, so obviously there was a lot of movement going on there for you. Finally settled in. And now obviously I've been following you since this last prep that you did into what was it? Easterns last year?
yes.
For
Yes.
you? And now was that your first time stepping on for figure?
So technically it was my second.
Okay.
So now let's go back to more transitions. So when we go back to my first season, I actually was a crossover for figure and bikini. And then I went just bikini so I could go to nationals the second year that I competed. I got stomped on and I realized that I didn't really like the training style for bikini. And so I wanted to grow and I had the ability, and if I have the ability to grow, I'm going to grow. So I decided to move just to figure. And then, so that was my first intentional time only focusing on figure. So yes, that was it was my second time, but it really was my first time focusing on it.
Yeah, right. Right. And now how much different was that than previous preps in terms of like, yeah, go ahead.
It was it was so much easier because like we're talking about space. I had space. I wasn't doing two things at one time. I was just focusing on the physique for figure. And yes, I also did women's bodybuilding, but we didn't change. We didn't change anything so that, or posing and all that. Like we didn't change anything. The body stayed the same. And so I only needed to focus on one division and it made things a lot easier. I had never been as lean as I get gotten. I was peeled. I was like 93 pounds and yeah. And like my glutes were striated. It was crazy. But I was able to do that. Like I was able to have the space to really dig deep. And like I spiritually went to a different place when I did that prep. It was different.
So now for you at this point, what's the dynamic for you as far as like, you're a coach and an athlete. Do you consider yourself one more than the other? Are you kind of 50-50? Where's your mindset at with like how you're deploying your resources on a day-to-day basis in terms of doing both the best that you can right now?
So I would say that one assists the other and it helps me. Both of them help me. So to be an athlete helps me coach. To be a coach helps me be a better athlete. So they work in a synonymous way. But if I had to choose, like if somebody was like, we need to choose today, like what you're going to do and what you need to pick for your lifestyle, I would probably I would probably choose coaching. And the reason being is one, it's my career and it's my livelihood. I love empowering people. Empowering people empowers me. So as I empower others, I'm giving back to myself, and that's why I'm able to maintain a competitive lifestyle at the same time. Granted, I'm not doing as much traveling and things yet, but that is coming. Like this upcoming year, I have a really big year. So who knows? Like my competitive goals and things might need to take a back burner, but I'm willing to let that happen, so that I can make sure that I watch my athletes and other people win, because that makes me super happy. I'm also a big learner. So, one of the requirements of being an elite and a good coach is to constantly be learning. And I love school. So like, I said I went to school for my master's. I actually got a stipend to go and get my master's. So I didn't pay for my master's degree. I was given a stipend so that I could oversee the fitness and wellness program there so that I could go to school. And I had always said, like, if I could go to school forever, that's what I'd do. Like I would do that. And so that coaching is that for me. Coaching is always learning, always staying a student, getting to connect with people like you, for example. That's really, if I weren't coaching, this wouldn't be happening. Like this is really important, right? This is an important piece of my lifestyle. So I would choose coaching, but I don't identify myself as one or the other, because even if I weren't competing at like competitive bodybuilding, I would still be actively working on myself. Whether or not that piece of competing is there, it would just be part of my lifestyle as it is already.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you definitely have that. Obviously, it's part of your history as we've been discussing it. And it's like, you're clearly somebody that needs, would you agree with me when I say you're somebody that needs to be challenged, or put in a position where growth is definitely like in front of you?
Yeah, I have. So I've actually found this out about myself this past week, is that I actually do a little bit better being an underdog, or feeling like an underdog, feeling like I need to like level up. I don't do as well feeling like I am the best, because there's no such thing. And I truly believe that you are always needing to level up in some way or learn something in some way. So when I'm put back, like when, for example, I had this, and I still do have this fire about figure and growing, because I know I need to. Like if I'm going to be successful in that division, I have to. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So there's a fire that's lit for me, knowing that I'm small, like knowing that I don't know everything, knowing that I'm not perfect, but that's life. It's just it's a mental state, and not to put myself down. It's knowing and valuing what I am, and knowing that there's always something above that. And so I'm always constantly striving for that. Yes, I do need to be challenged. Otherwise, wouldn't we all get complacent? And I'm uncomfortable with complacency. I'm uncomfortable with complacency in my athletes. I'm uncomfortable with complacency with my family, with my friends. I wouldn't say I'm hard to be around, but I'm somebody that like, I'm asking for more from you. Like I'm actively asking for more, because I'm asking more of myself.
Yeah. No, but I think it's one of those things where you kind of you shrugged it off. You're like, what is it, complacency? And I think honestly, I think if you were to look at, and I think it's a very broad statement and probably completely and totally unfair, but just to kind of paint a picture here and kind of, my narrative at least. How many people do get like you're at that age, you know what I mean? Where it's like 30 years comes, a 30-year-old, you hit that mark, and it's almost like a lot of people do fall into a very complete state. And I think that was a thing for a long time for a lot of people, where it's like you get the 9 to 5, you get the family, you get the house, the white picket fence, and it's like your life kind of falls in place there. And it's just, and then before you know it, and maybe you guys are a little bit too young for it, but there used to be a thing called midlife crisis. You know what I mean? Where everybody went through a midlife crisis. And it was, honestly, I think a lot of that came from that midlife complacency, where like, from the age of 30, end up with that house, with those kids. And then, but, now you're living for an entirely separate situation for other people or for your family or whatever it is. And then you wake up when you're 40 one day and you feel like you kind of lost yourself a little bit. And I'm not saying that you can't have the same aspirations that you have within that concept, but again, I think it's a lot harder to mentally put yourself in that position and kind of put yourself first sometimes when you have so many other things going on. And you just kind of chose the path of being able to be consistently, you know, growing and developing and working on yourself. And I think, honestly, I think for at the end of the day, it is something where most people probably choose the path of least resistance. I think we can all agree on that, right?
Yeah.
I think that's it's almost like a human nature at this point, where it seems like you're kind of going the opposite direction there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like I
Yeah,
like I haven't even gotten married yet. You know, I'm
yeah,
not even, I mean, I'm not even close. Like I
yeah,
haven't even like not even close there.
yeah,
Because I'm so, not because I'm pushing it all away. I just haven't had the right opportunity that assists me in the goals that I have.
yeah.
And
And you're
if it's
still
not,
developing yourself. Yeah,
yeah, and
I
if
didn't mean to
it's
cut
not
you off. It's
that,
just yeah,
yeah, no, it's not that. Like I just would rather focus on me. And
yeah,
like I watched my parents get married a little too young and then go through their whole thing. And
mhm,
something that my mom told me, she was like, it's so interesting to watch you really, she was like, from my perspective, really do it the right way. Like you're just like, you're not overly concerned about settling down. You're very concerned about continuing to get to know yourself. And how can I have the life and love or family or whatever that I want without knowing myself and what I need?
Mhm.
mhm,
And so that's why I haven't really committed to anything other than myself. Like
yeah,
I'm not, and I feel like it's helped me out because it gives me so much freedom. It gives me
yeah,
so much, you know, potential to do more. And I'm really thankful. It's one of my favorite parts about myself is that I trust myself to know what to do. I trust myself to be okay with pivoting and make it happen. Like most people wouldn't pack up their shit twice and move across the country twice.
Oh no.
yeah,
People would be upset with themselves for that, but I just knew that it was the right step at the time. And so I
yeah,
can't be mad at myself for it. Like it is what it is. I love what I love and I'm going to do what I want to do. So, and I'm not tied down to anything. Not tied down to a job or a responsibility yet, a big responsibility like kids. But you know what you said about the white picket fence and that kind of the American dream thing? I
mhm,
do feel like some people are meant to stay there. Like I do
yeah,
feel like there are some people like they that is where their life is at its peak. And
mhm,
that's cool. Like that's part
yeah,
of their
hundred
universal
percent.
role, right? But I do think that it's a choice.
Yeah.
And so for me, I chose a different place.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, and I didn't mean to touch on anything too personal there, but and or to continue to go down the path of something too personal, but it really like it's starting to like you know in my mind I'm coming back to my own I had a kid. I have a 17-year-old, right? So I had a kid when I was very young, 21 years old, and it was one of those things where you know I'll tell anybody this, and I love my kids to death, but it definitely stunted my growth as an individual. It took me a long time to continue to you know mature into the person that I wanted to be, into the person that makes me the happiest on a day-to-day basis, because I was living life in a way for other people. And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that I don't know if I was ready for that at that time. Where my sister, on the other hand, my sister has had 5 kids, right? She was one where she has her master's in children's education. She was one where it's like I remember when I was a young kid, she's 2 years older than me, but by the time she was like whatever 13 years old, she had her own business, and it was like you know babysitting, but then it turned into being a nanny. She lived with another family to nanny the child, but she was in high school still. But again, she went to school for it. She wrote articles. This is again, I'm 39 years old. So this is years and years and years ago when there's actually newspapers and people cared. We had one here. It was called the Asbury Park Press. It was relatively big. She had her own article in the newspaper where she would write about, you know, parenthood or whatever. And she didn't even have her own kid yet. And she was like in her early, like she was like 19 years old and she was writing this article. But again, she's somebody where it's like, she was almost like, she formed her own process there and her own path there to fulfill her passion, which is being a mom, which is being a wife, which is
Yes,
being part of that family
yes,
dynamic. You know what I mean? It's
yes.
extremely important to her. And she still does it at a very high level. Like I go and I look at her kids and I'm like, fuck, man, what am I doing wrong with mine over here? Like, she's got seriously, she homeschools all of her kids. Her husband is in the Navy. So they, like, right now they live in Singapore, they lived in Japan, Ireland, all these different places. She homeschools them, and they're all like, the most, my niece and nephews are awesome, well-developed. It's just one of those things where, again, I can see that from both sides of the spectrum for me really easily, where I see my sister that was destined for that life, and then I see myself where it took me a long time to be able to really find that path. And I was stuck in, again, not to get too personal, but what was really a toxic situation for me, because I was trying to make something work that ultimately didn't work. It wouldn't work because it wasn't aligned with who I was as a person. It didn't allow me to explore myself and develop myself as a person. And ultimately, I couldn't be the best dad in the situation that I was in. I couldn't be the best partner in the situation I was in. I couldn't be the best competitor or the best coach or anything that I tried to do, because I was so focused on doing things that weren't, again, in line with who I was as a person. And now that I've been able to break out of that, my last, whatever, it's been like 6 or 7 years since I've gotten out of that situation. It's been a completely and totally, transitional thing for me. And again, I honestly, I love my kids to death, and I would never say anything against having my kids. But at the end of the day, if I was giving somebody advice, I would tell them, don't do what I did. Wait as long as you can. And really, like you said, like, develop yourself, like, challenge yourself, grow as an individual. And then when you find that person, when you find that situation that fits you best, you're there to be the best version of yourself with that person. And you find that person that only props you up, you know what I mean? And allows you to be even better. Does that all make sense? Or did I go
Yeah,
off
it
on a
makes
personal
sense.
tangent?
Tim, wait, no, you're 39. You don't look 39.
Thank you.
I feel like, Tim, I feel like every time you mention your age, you add a year. You're not
No, yeah,
39. Aren't you like 37?
No, I'm 38, but I like to stay a year ahead. You know what I mean? To keep myself on my toes. I'm getting close to 40, so I want to make sure that, like, I'm braced
I'm
for
telling
it,
you, he
when it
lies.
comes.
He's a big fat liar.
No,
That's a lot.
June.
Okay, so you're
June's my
basically
birthday.
40. So you're 40
What's
then. You're 40.
Oh yeah, come June 5th, I'm 40 for at least the next year. I gotta, like, 40 is the one where, like, I really gotta prep myself. I've been telling people recently that I'm 40 because it's, 39 is
Oh my
coming in just
God.
a couple of months, and, like, I gotta be mentally ready for 40 because I don't know what I'm gonna do. Honestly, we were talking
Oh
about
my
midlife crisis before. I'm on the verge, baby. I'm on the verge.
No, but I just wanted to say, Brittany, like, everything that you've said, like, we align very, like, well with our
Yeah,
mindsets
yeah.
in our story. But I do want to kind of switch gears and kind of talk about the team, how
Also, wait, also,
but
you guys align very well with the hair. I feel like Marina's hair is lacking today a little bit.
it
There's not
is,
as much
right?
volume there. Yeah, but
It's not as
I'm
bad.
digging
Eyes
the I'm
shining
digging
a
the
little
curls.
bit.
Yeah, no, she's gross. What was I saying? Oh yeah, I want to talk about the team, how you and Mark's dynamic has come about, because I think, Tim, you can agree we probably have like very similar dynamic going on. But yeah, I just want to hear more about how you and Mark kind of have set up your team and just, yeah, how you're growing it.
Yeah, so I want to make sure it's clear. Like, Mark created Tomanek Trained.
Yeah.
Like, I hired him very early. So I'll tell you about our journey and our relationship. So
Hey, you know what?
I
Maybe we could preface this a little bit. I'm sorry. That's me, Brittany. I cut everybody off, and like, my
yeah,
brain's
you
going
suck.
100 miles an hour. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I
I'm
was
sorry.
just kidding.
But
Yeah, just
but
kidding.
I just so you know, like, every calorie counts was an LLC that I formed literally fucking 11 years
Yeah.
ago now. And Marina's a head coach underneath us and a partner now. But it took, for the last, like, year and a half, right? It's one of those ones where it's like it seems like it's a similar construct, and that's kind of something that kind of led us to reaching out to you, and kind of, your Instagram resonating, and what I see on Instagram at least resonating with me is that it does seem like there's a similar dynamic there. So very similar, it seems like, to what you and Mark do. So for all intents and purposes, Mark had a coaching business, a coaching team, whatever we want to, define it as. And then, however long later, Brittany comes along, and now it just seems like you're heavily invested in it from what we
Oh
can
yeah.
see. So again, to make it clear, Mark is there.
Yeah.
We'll reach out to Mark too, hopefully get him on the podcast soon. But I just
Yeah.
wanted to throw
He'd
that out
love
there
to.
that,
He'd love
yeah.
to. He's really nice. So yeah, exactly. So Mark created Tomanek Trained. He started his coaching business, and it was around 2020 that I noticed him and his presence in social media. And he was getting athletes, like, he was kind of blowing up at the time, doing a lot of educational things, things that other coaches just weren't doing at the time. And I really gravitated toward it because he had this this kind of perfect blend of old school and new school. Like he was doing it like an old school bodybuilder, really hardcore, like I'm used to with my mom, like in my family. And so I was gravitated toward that because at the time I was on a team that just gave you macros and you did what you want with your macros, and it was that was it. And I wanted to be on a team, but a very serious team. And so I found him, and I'd already been following him. I just didn't notice him until like a little bit later. And I hired him, and it was kind of like, it was like perfect. Like we just worked together so well. Sometimes in our conversations during our check-ins, it was really developmental. Like for me personally, I developed a lot during that time. Then COVID hit. I started my own coaching business because I now understood what it was like to be treated well as an athlete, and I wanted to give that to other people. So it was funny. I had asked him if he would be open to doing a mentorship, and he actually told me he didn't have time for me. He was like, I don't have time. I can't do that, and I won't do that. And if I do, it's going to basically like, you're going to have to give, pay a lot of money. And I don't think that you have it. He was like, but he was right. Like I wasn't at that point. So I had gone out to meet him and another athlete I was close to in August of 2020. And that was the first time I came to Avon Lake. So I'd come here before I moved here. And it was like, we just hit it off, and I brought up the thing of coaching again. He was like, Brittney, you just got to do it. Like that was the advice he gave me. He was like, you just do it. Like, if you really want this, just do it. And I was like, okay. So a month later, I launched my coaching business. And then maybe 6 months later, he had opened up positions for assistant coaches, and a lot of people had applied. I think like 40 people had applied, and I was picked. So yeah, so he hired me, and it was rough at first. Like it was rough being around so many like very invested and driven coaches that he has on his team. But then I started really excelling. Like I just started really doubling down. I went full-time coaching, and it was like every day was a grind. I looked at it as every day I start with zero, and I'm basically going through my day, and I'm racking up whatever I can and using up as much time as I can to develop myself, market myself, train myself, eat my food. It was every day zero. And I'm still like that. Today I woke up when I went to sleep last night, and I knew I was doing this podcast today. This is the first thing I'm doing. Like I was like, it starts with that podcast today. And Mark really aligned with that. So then he asked me to be on the podcast on Competitive Edge. And then that's what really developed our coach-athlete, coach-coach relationship. And then after that, like we just started working together on a lot of stuff, a lot of projects, the meetups, and really with the mindset of we want to treat people well. And so this is what we're going to do to make sure that that aligns. And so now the direction of Tomanek Trained is less about like lifestyle coaching, and we're really moving toward the direction of just competitive athletes. And so because that's where we want to go, and that's what we want to be. And that's really how it started. That's how Mark started. We did go in different avenues with lifestyle coaching and stuff, and we found what worked for us. And so now it's something that, I mean, I give all credit to him for creating Tomanek Trained, but I love it so much because of how it changed my life. And I want people, in any athletes that come onto the team, to feel that. Like, I want you to feel this freedom that I have, this love that I have, this enlightenment, because it's truly special. And it's not something that everyone gets to have in their life on this earth. So it's literally because it changed my life, and I want other people's to understand that.
You see it too, and I think that's the thing for me. Like I've seen Mark be a part of it in certain cases. I saw you guys had that cool party not that long ago where you guys were out, and yeah, like the things are spraying, and you're at like whatever was a club or lounge or whatever. Yeah. I'm a hermit. I'm one of those like at home people that just
I have
doesn't leave the
to
house ever.
drag him to our team events.
Yeah. Marina might see me
I
like
mean, I
once
was
every
gonna
4
say
months.
I can invite you. Like,
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Well, I mean, what's Ohio? Like quick 8 hour drive, not that big of a deal. But no, it's definitely one of those things though where you see it on, and it's not you guys like staging anything either, which is cool. Like I'll see it on Anthony's story, I'll see it on your story, I'll see it on Leah's story. On it's like you guys are all just like hanging out. Whether it's like I said, I saw when you bought the house, and is it Mark's wife that came and helped with a lot of the maybe like decorating or whatever it was? I don't want to.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
like, but it seems like you guys have that very close. Like, I think that's one thing that I would like to do that we kind of lack. And again, it's my personality more than anything else. I'm a very, very big introvert, huge introvert. Marina knows. If
Yeah.
anything, Marina is the one that literally plans everything on her own. Whether it's the team events we do, team parties, whatever it is, it's usually I'm just like, yeah, whatever. Just tell me where to be. You know what I mean? But with you guys, again, it's not just the events and stuff, but like I see you guys just hanging out and like and maybe that's just through the lens of who I follow on the team. But again, it seems like you guys have a very close what's the word I'm looking for? Like not relationship
Community, like a little,
camaraderie, yeah, community,
yeah.
whatever it is. The bottom line is
Yeah.
you guys feed off of each other.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's actually interesting that you say that because it's not staged. It's like, and we all treat each other with respect. We all love each other very much. You know how sometimes you can get in an area with a lot of people, there becomes a lot of drama and all that. Like it's really not. It's like a lot of love. Like just a lot of, I want to see you do so well. How can I help you? How can I help you do this? And allowing the space for those people around this place that live here. There's 1, 2, 3, there's like 7 or 8 of us like that see each other on a daily basis. Sometimes somebody's going through something. Like sometimes you want to be there to pick them up and help them. Sometimes they need space. It's really like this. I've never worked through things with people, like even with my family. Like this is my first experience having healthy relationships where all you want for them is just to do good. Like that's all you want, and you trust that they want that for you too. And I think that's why the people want to come out here to see us so much. It's kind of like a resort. Like it's kind of like, because we live
It looked
within
like
a
it.
3
Honestly,
mile.
that's what it looks like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we live within a 3 mile radius of each other. So like we can all walk to each other's houses if we want to. Sometimes we go weeks without seeing each other, except for the gym. Sometimes we see each other on a daily basis. It really depends on where everyone's at. When someone's in prep though, everybody's at the gym. If one person's in prep, everybody's there. I like what you said about your relationship with you and Marina, about how you're pretty introverted, because the thing is about Mark is that too, or he was that. I brought that out of him. I was like, yo, this is what we need to be doing. If you want to see this team grow the way you want it to, the way you're telling me you want it to, we have to move in this direction. And he just trusted me. And I'm very grateful that he trusted me, because he could have been like, no, like, I don't want to do any of that. I want to stay in my house with my dogs and I want to coach people online. And instead he stepped out of his comfort zone because he was like, okay, like I see where this is going. And he felt the magic that was around connecting with others. And so it does take a lot of crying a little bit. But I think that from consistent exposure and understanding how we operate in with other people, it gets better, because we all have to step out of our comfort zone when we do meetups. And then when we want to go support someone at a bodybuilding show, like we don't go anywhere. We just stay here. We see each other every single day. So
yeah. No, he looks like he was having the most fun out of everybody at the party that I was talking about. He looks like he fucking enjoyed himself big time. He didn't look like a homebody
he
at
does
all.
now. No, it's funny because he's like one of those guys. It's like, I tell people when we do because the winter meetup is what you were talking about. The winter meetup's is a big one. This year we'll probably have about 100 people there. And I always tell everyone, just understand, like, we don't get out much. So this is our one day. This is our one day in the year to go somewhere and and like just freely let go. And because of that, it creates different types of connections. Like it just creates so much solidified love and trust that's already there. But then we remove work out of it for 1 day, 1 or 2 days. And it's like, wow. It's like, wow, I actually do love you. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
actually
yeah.
fuck with you. Like
See, it's not to speak for Mark or anything, but like I know for me, it's hard because you are and again, it's not to sound like an arrogant, like, or put myself on a pedestal or anything, but like the whole, like, I don't know, persona, or like you're like, there's a leadership quality to being a coach, you know what I mean? And then when you have coaches underneath you, you're also trying to lead those coaches down the right path. So to be able to kind of take that off, even for a night, it's not the easiest thing to do, or for an event or whatever it is, to kind of come down, and again, it sounds super arrogant. It's not, I'm not trying to say in such a way, but to come down to a different level, if you would, or to maybe come up to a level, might be a better way of putting it, to be able to meet people on that one-on-one level. And again, it's not that you're not there to begin with, but again, you're trying to lead people down a certain path at certain points, right? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I
To be able
think
to have that off time and really be completely and totally uninhibited, and really let yourself kind of come out and, like, fully enjoy yourself, versus trying to be the leader all the time. To me, it is a little bit more daunting than just like, hey, let's come hang out. You know what I mean? Seriously.
I think, Tim, to your point, I think what it comes down to, just like with any business, any team, when you're collaborating, we have strengths, we have weaknesses. And I think it's really cool to hear that, Mark can see, like, hey, one of my weaknesses is maybe I'm not so like extroverted, and I need to let Brittney lead us to get together and whatever. And like same with us too. Like
Yeah.
maybe like you're probably more introverted than I am. I'm more introverted. Riley's way more extroverted than the both of us. So it's like,
Yeah.
I think the whole like reasoning for that is just understanding that we all have strengths, weaknesses, and we all want to grow together. So allowing someone to shine and do their thing is only going to help you.
Oh yeah, of course. And
so
I would never argue that. I would just say,
Yeah.
again, for me, it's like I
No,
come
yeah,
from
I was
that
just like
corporate
going off your
background.
point. I wasn't like going against
Yeah,
it.
yeah. No, no, no. I come from that corporate background. I remember where I was legitimately always taught, like, hey, there's a big difference between being friendly with your employees versus having friendships with your employee. And you got to
Yeah.
make sure that you're friendly with your employee and be the leader. You know what I mean? And it's like, I remember my mentor in corporate America, John Talento, who still works for GNC today. He was one of those guys where he's like, you will never, ever, 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 ever not see me in, a full fucking tie, button up, like pant. It doesn't matter where we're going, what we're doing. Like, this is who I am. I am your mentor. I am your leader. You know what I mean? And I'm going to show you guys the way 24/7, and how to be that person. So it's a little bit of a different situation here, where you're on such a one-on-one and personal level and developing personal relationships with people. You know what I mean?
yeah, I would definitely say that it's still like that during the meetups. Like we still have, like, we're still doing educational sessions. Like at the gym, we're doing movement sessions, we're doing posing, we're doing training and stuff. When we get to go to dinner and stuff, that's a different story.
Exactly.
But I do think that you always, even myself, I always have that hat on. Like I'm not going like completely just which way or whatever way, in a way that would make my athletes look at me differently. But that's not even me. I wouldn't even do that. That's my point, is that we are not even those types of people. So that's why it doesn't seem staged, because it's authentic. This is authentic. We're authentically leaders. We're authentically professional. We're authentically coaches. We're authentically athletes. Like, so there's no acting. And so it can be hard for people to look at this place and be like, really? Like they're actually like that. And one of the most common comments that we get is, oh my goodness, you're actually what you say you are. Like you are actually what you say you are on social media. You're actually what you say. Like this is all you. And it's like, why would it be any other way? And it makes me think of, are there other people that that you have met that you're like, wow, that's not who they are. And it hurts sometimes, because I really hate for people to be exposed to something like that, but it's just how we are. We just live this. We're unashamed, unapologetic. It's not that I don't care about what other people think, because that would be a lie. Of course, sometimes I care about what people think, but I do live my life as authentic as I possibly can, and I actively practice that too. Like I challenge myself in that, because that's how you connect with others, but then that's how you bring in and attract more authenticity. And the more authentic you can be, the happier you'll be.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, 100%. How big is competition bodies for you guys?
How big? Like how
important?
Like square foot? Oh,
No, I mean, like,
like,
how important is it for you guys? Like, in
oh,
terms of that, in terms of that, like, central hub.
yeah, it's really important. Like you walk in and you smell competition bodies and you're like, oh, work. You're like,
Yeah,
I'm working now. Like,
right.
it's one of those places. I think the reason why it's so special is because it has a lot of history. And so, and when you walk into the gym, it's old and it's grungy and it's a place that very bougie people would not want to be, but it has so much history and in that a lot of love that comes into it. And so Mark he owns it, but his dad owned it and they co-own it. I think I actually don't know the entire structure of it, but his family owns it. It's family owned and operated. And if it weren't for competition bodies, there wouldn't be Tomanek Trained. And if it weren't for Tomanek Trained, there wouldn't be Brittney and Leah and, you know, everybody that lives out here. There wouldn't be all that. So it all trickles down. So if it weren't for that one thing with Mark's dad owning competition bodies and creating what it is, like when I see him, I say, you're the reason why everybody's here. Because he likes to make jokes about, he's like, I don't know why you moved here from California. And I'm like, you did this. Like, do you understand that you did this? And he's just like, whatever. Like he has his little like attitude, but he doesn't understand what type of inception and what was born out of just, I'm gonna create this bodybuilding gym and him getting on stage and then Mark seeing that and then Mark getting on stage and then me hiring Mark and then it all connects. And so, yes, it's extremely important because without competition bodies, there would be none of this. There would be no podcast today. So
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of like something that like, we kind of miss at that, you know what I mean? Where it's like, we don't have that central hub for everybody because it's similar to Mark, which we have clients from all over, but like, in our local area, that's where, whatever, 90% of our clientele base is coming from in that local area. And it would just be awesome to have that place, where everybody's able to kind of like see each other on a daily basis to some extent, you know what I mean? Where it's like, you walk in there, you're going to see teammates and you're going to see people that are going to be there to lift you up and be there to support you and be there to train with and just, kind of one up each other, but also just be that real community, right? Not just like social media, be able to message everybody and, back and forth, which in and of itself is potent. I'm not saying it's not, but again, having that in-person ability to kind of, feed off of each other's energy and kind of develop that and nurture the relationships. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think there's something really special about that goes a long way, honestly.
yeah, no, it's one of a kind. It's the reason why people want to travel here to see it. Because it's like once we open the door to invite, it's like, okay, I want to see what that's like. And they get here and it's so simple. It's a very simple life. It's literally my house is 5-minute walk down to competition bodies. I can walk to the store too. I can walk to Mark's. I can walk to Leah's. Like, right. But it's just the fact that there's so much space to be able, and I'm talking like spiritual space, emotional space to be able to do that. That if we need support or if we need to grow, like we go to a certain place to do that. And it creates a lot of trust, knowing that there's something that's always there. Like it's always there. Competition bodies is not going anywhere. And no matter what, that you can get what you need. And I think that that's one of the big things that attracted me in my move was that I was looking for stability and security as an individual who had constantly been moving and constantly been developing. I was at one point just like, God damn, I just want to like buy a fucking house and settle down and like and fully commit to myself and give myself what I need. Right. So I think it is a place that I do not take for granted. Like, and that's why I'm here. That's why I made the trip that I did.
Yeah, it's awesome for sure. We just have to move somewhere that's a little bit cheaper. So Marina can get a spot by me, fucking Riley can get a spot by me. But Central New Jersey is expensive as shit. It's basically light, it's LA light. You know what I mean? So it's expensive. But so listen, we obviously you got to get going soon because Brittney has something coming up here in 15 minutes. So we got to let you go soon. But like what you said you had a busy year coming up. What's next for Brittney here?
Yeah, so I have around 5 athletes going on stage this year, which is actually the most I've put on stage, or I will put on stage this year. I have a couple new very good competitors that have come on my team. I am coaching the most athletes I ever have at this time, and I'm still pushing for more and looking to drop some new clothing this year. So if you guys don't know, like I have my whole clothing thing, and that's another
I
thing
did
that
not
has
know.
been,
It's
yeah,
right here.
so don't be a
Yeah.
bitch.
Oh, I want that.
Yeah. So
Where can
I have,
where can we see the clothing line?
it's on my microsite. You can see my link in my bio on Brittney Justice. That's my
Awesome.
Instagram handle, and you can see all of my offerings there. I'm also starting to offer one-on-one mentorships for coaches. So up and coming coaches, if they need mentorship done, I'm able to give them what they need, either curriculum or any topics that they are wanting to learn more about, whether it's peaking, lifestyle athletes, competitive athletes, all of that's being launched actually this upcoming week. And then I'm also
Nice.
offering, so I'm also offering one-on-one consult calls. So if anybody's not looking to get a coach immediately, if they would like to just come on a meeting one-on-one with me, they're able to do that as well. So I'm trying to right now like really expand, my offerings and my services for what I know I'm very good at, which is teaching. And so I'm excited to get into that. But then I'm also really excited to keep putting people on stage, because my goal right now is to put more people, like more volume of people on stage every single year, even if that means one more than last year. And so that's been happening the last 3 years. So I'm really excited for that. No competing for me this year, though. I'm not competing.
No competing for you. What's the goal there for you? Obviously to grow, but like I mean, like what is there something that you guys have planned in terms of the next show at this point, or like roundabout in Brittney's mind?
Yeah. We're looking to go to nationals next time. Looking to really push for a pro card. And right now I'm just focused on growing, because really that's what it is. It's the shape is there. I just need to grow. And so all I need is time and just continuing to stay focused and diligent, and it'll all work out. So
Sounds familiar once again. Sounds familiar once again. Maria's in the same boat. So
Exactly.
all right. So
Wow.
is there anything else that you want to drop before we let you go here? Or any other questions you might have, Marina?
No, unless Brittney, you're good.
no, I don't have anything. Just follow me on Instagram, Brittney Justice, with 2 E's at the end. And yeah, that's about it. I plugged everything I needed to.
Awesome.
Nice.
Honestly, I think it was good to have you on and get to know you a little bit more. Maybe we keep obviously we want to keep the door open, have you back on. Maybe we have you on for something that's a little bit more specific, like X's and O's. I like to have everybody on first to be able to kind of get to know them, get that background story, and allow everybody that's listening to kind of get to know that person. And then from there, obviously, if we can get you back on to have another talk about something specific, maybe you choose, or maybe I'll see something on Instagram that kind of sparks my interest, and we'll have you back for a specific topic.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would love that. I had a good time. I had a really good time, and I would love to be back on.
Awesome.
We
Yeah, I
appreciate it.
really liked this episode. But thank you everybody for listening. We'll catch you guys next week. Make sure you reach out to Brittney, give her a follow, check out her clothes. And we'll talk soon.